So I'm joined here today with Alan Byrne, VP of Product from Quadratec. Quadratec's one of Insentra's strategic partners that we've been working with now for over 7 years, and Alan was the previous managing director of an organisation called Cogmotive, recently acquired by Quadratec. So I thought I'd have a chat with Alan and have Alan share a little bit of the history of his organisation, what made him think of it, etc., and share some of that with you, our audience. So Alan, mate, thanks very much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you come in. You just flown in this morning, right?
Yeah, I flew in this morning, 24 hours just to come and see you and have a chat.
Yeah, well, lucky we had good makeup, huh? So, Alan, tell me, what was it that originally made you think of creating Cogmotive?
So my co-founder and I, we were working on a project to migrate 750,000 mailboxes from on-prem Exchange into Office 365. It was just brand new then at the time, from BPOS directly into Office 365. And we were trying to do this migration, and all these project managers kept coming up and saying, is anyone actually using these mailboxes that we're moving? We're looking around for information inside the portal of Office 365. There was no information. We had to run PowerShell scripts. It took forever. Mm-hmm. And we had to do this throughout the whole project with different bits of information for different people inside the organization, and tried to find an off-the-shelf product to put in so we could do our day job. But there wasn't anything out there. And when the project ended, we got together in a pub and thought, you know what, other companies are probably going to have this problem as well. We could probably build something that would help them. We put up a proof of concept. A couple of weeks later, someone signed up and started using it. A couple of weeks after that, someone said, how much is it? Can we buy it? We thought, better register a company, and maybe there's something we can do with that. And that was 6 years ago, and here we are 5 years ago.
Wow, that's pretty... So actually, the product was born out of a use case of during migration.
Yep.
To see how you could actually, what the adoption rate was.
Absolutely.
And then since then, it's grown, right? It's got a life of its own.
Absolutely, yeah. So it started off as just Exchange. And then we were seeing companies migrate first on Exchange to Office 365, slowly start picking up those other workloads, Skype, SharePoint, OneDrive. So our product has evolved alongside the way that these customers are adopting these services. So now we're going to move into groups and all these other new services, teams as well, just follow where the customer goes and build something that they need.
Okay, so you've got Exchange reporting, SharePoint reporting, OneDrive reporting, Skype reporting. What are some of the unique things that you are able to report on that, say, with standard Microsoft tools you're not otherwise going to get?
It's about the depth of the data that you have. So within Microsoft, you get a list of people who are using Exchange. It just says their name and their login name. What department are they in? What country are they in? Who do they report to? Is there anything similar about these users who are using it compared to the ones who aren't? So what we allow is large enterprise organizations to filter down that data and get the right piece of information in front of the right people. And that's something you can't really do with the built-in tools. Even the newer stuff that's coming out is really geared towards sort of the small business side of the market, and enterprise has this big gaping hole that they can't get any information out of, and that's where we come in.
So are you suggesting your product is more targeted at enterprise, or is it very much across the board in terms of the people being able to utilize it?
There's a lot of value for small organizations as well, but we tend to find that people who get the best bang for their buck are the large enterprise with the multiple teams, different people needing different sets of data. When you've got 20 people in a company, you tend to know who's left or who hasn't left. When you've got 20,000 people in a company, someone doesn't tell the IT department that someone's left the organization. You may still pay for that license every month, even though it's not needed.
So speaking of paying for licenses, one of the use cases that I think is really fascinating with your tool set is the ability to look at things like chargeback. Mm-hmm. So do you want to just talk to me a little bit about how that sort of evolved and what you can do in that space? Because chargeback's a big thing in the enterprise.
Yeah, and that's
even in medium market, it's a big issue.
Right, it's anyone who wants to recover the costs of an IT service. I mean, the bill goes to IT normally, to a single place, and then you on-bill those services internally. Even franchising type companies we're seeing a lot of. Mm-hmm. They have multiple franchises. They need to put that cost back down onto the franchise owner. It came from when I used to work in large, like Citibank was one of the places I worked. We used to have to build all these manual reports in Excel, and there was some sort of VBA magic that happened in the background that ran all these macros. We just have a report now where we can group by any Active Directory attribute, what licenses are there, click a button, and off it goes to whoever it needs to. We're trying to make it easy for people to get the boring part of their job out of the way so they can focus on being proactive in their IT department.
Right, so you've got modules around Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive, and in the Exchange module it includes Skype. Mm-hmm. So could you do that sort of report across a user, across all of those different things in 365? So, a department, for example, is using this many licenses of mail, this much of SharePoint, this much data they're using in SharePoint, and sort of bring all that together?
Absolutely. So we have a similar to an Excel pivot table functionality that allows you to pivot any of our data sets. So which department is sending the most instant messages, which one's sending the most volume of email, who's not sending any email, and we can group all of that information together and put it into the same report. So if you want to see if one department is sending a lot of instant messages, and are they sending a lot of internal mail as well, because you would expect them to replace internal mail with instant messaging, for example. You can really group this data together to find out what's happening in the organization. How are people moving their workloads, or moving their work across the different workloads?
Right, okay. So Insentra, as you know, is we call ourselves partner obsessed, right? So our clients are the channel and then the channel's clients that we work with. So where do you see the value for a channel partner in leveraging the tool set itself?
If you're a partner with many different customers using Office 365, you want to be able to find opportunities for consulting, training, to add value to these customers. When you have data about how things are being used, you can more effectively find opportunities within your existing customer base, and then be more efficient with those opportunities as well. So you can see, firstly, that this customer is struggling with Skype usage in some parts of their organization. They're paying for 50,000 Skype licenses, but only 20,000 of them are using it. But then you can actually go deeper within that customer and go, look, we're not going to train the people who are already using it. That would be a waste of everyone's time, your time, their time, money. You can be more efficient about where you target those certain training or consulting services within that organization as well.
So what are some of the other benefits that partners would get from leveraging this tool?
One of the best things that we've been able to offer our partners is a white label version of Cogmotive, so they can, without our name in it anywhere, provide that service under their own branding, especially if they're rolling that into a managed service along with a bunch of other things. They can have it look and feel like the rest of their website, the rest of their service offering. Any emails that go out as a scheduled report have the partner's logo on it. It's got a whole different name and tagline. Whatever you want to do, we allow you to customize that.
So that's much of the same as what we've done at Insentra. So we can provide that service to our partners so that our partners can deliver that out to their clients as well if they want to.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. So one of the things partners always struggle with as well is the DPOR and doing a reconciliation between what Microsoft is saying is being used, etc. So how does the Cogmotive toolset help in that scenario?
So with DPOR, you need to show active usage. I mean, you get paid when someone is using the license, not just for selling it. So what we can do is help you find where the licenses aren't used. Again, target that training and increase that DPOR kickback you get from Microsoft.
So it actually becomes a really interesting tool that you can then report back to Microsoft about the active usage of your clients that you've sold things to as well, right?
We've seen in the past maybe Microsoft have missed a few things that the partner believes the customer is using, and they've used our tools to help validate that. It's also with the SLA pieces as well. Our service status reports, we plot that information up on a calendar so you can see how long a service was down, and then you can use that to show Microsoft, look, Exchange Online was down for 2 days in the middle of the month, can we please get some service credit back? And to validate and to
although we haven't really seen it go down for 2 days at a time though, right?
No, but I mean we have seen other services go down as well, so people get service credits back for those.
Okay. And I think probably 6 months ago or thereabouts, you added in a new capability which you call Discover and Audit. So what's the sort of essence of the Discover and Audit capability, and what does it do differently again to the Microsoft tool sets that are otherwise available?
So in our first two modules, the Office 365 and the SharePoint Online, was about what could be done. Who has got access to a mailbox? Who has got access to a SharePoint library or file? Discover and Audit is a bit of a shift away from that to show you who actually did do something. So the two really complement each other very nicely. The differences between the built-in tools and ours is how visual it is. There's a lot of data that's generated from audit events in a large organization. Every time you open a file in SharePoint, do anything like that, it will generate an event. And if you're looking at log lines, just text streaming around, you can't see what's really going on. By plotting that data visually, allowing people to filter and drill down just by clicking on things, it allows people who may not be Unix style savants that like looking at text in a terminal window, allowing compliance officers, security officers to actually visualize that information and what's going on and get a bit more of that needle in the haystack approach.
Okay, so you speak about compliance officers, and that's always a really interesting thing, is because compliance, tend to be that one step removed from IT and almost the police, if you like, around what's going on. So with the tool set, you can create different dashboards, can you, so that compliance can see certain things that different, the permissioning, if you like, within the tool is flexible enough to allow different people access to different types of reports.
Absolutely, and that's one of the things that compliance teams actually like. You don't want to give everyone Office 365 administrator access just so they can look at reports, which is what you kind of have to do at the moment in the built-in reports. So you can create, for the compliance officers, access to just see the permissions reports or whatever they need there. You can give the finance team access to look at the licensing information only, so they can log in without any kind of Office 365 admin access, without any kind of admin experience, and just see what licenses are being used by who, not see any of the Skype information or any of that other information. So trying to, again, get the right information in front of the right people.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you've got like now, what, 4 million seats that
I think we're pushing 5 now.
Pushing 5 million seats of usage
across
for the product.
all of our customers, yeah.
So, you know, in terms of what you can share publicly at the moment, what are some of the new things that you're looking to bring out as, you know, in the next iterations? Because your product just evolves as Microsoft release new things like groups, like Teams, etc. You just start to report on those as well. So it naturally evolves just by owning it, much in the same way as 365 evolves. So we've got that I'm sure is you know, sort of part of your roadmap. What are some of the sort of really unique and funky things that you're seeing from clients? Those 4 million, 5 million seats that you're monitoring today, you must be getting a bombarding of questions around, hey, can you do this? Can you do this? Can you cut this? Can you skin it that way? What are some of the cool things you're about to bring out?
So the biggest thing that's coming very soon is the alerting on the Discover and Audit piece. So not just logging in to see when someone's accessed a file, but actually be notified. So if you've got a secret Coca-Cola recipe, for example, up on your SharePoint, and you want to make sure that whenever someone changes the permissions in that area, someone is notified, we can then send a text message or an email based on that. So trying to prevent mistakes from happening before they do. Right. The other piece as well is then extension on from that, probably closer towards the end of this year, will be automatically fixing things that we see happening. So if you know that in-place hold has to be on for anyone in this department, if someone goes outside of that baseline, we'll be able to automatically fix it again if you wanted us to.
So that's kind of the panacea of IT, right? Because now you're getting into proactive rather than reactive. And a lot of people think, oh, well, you know, and so the discovery and audit today is largely backward looking.
Yeah.
So this has happened. Now, you know, something happened, let me go and check it out. So what you're doing now is moving the tool to go that one step further, which everyone really wants, which is not only do I now know that something's happened, but through machine learning or whatever process you're going to take, that will just automatically say, oh, I know what that is, and that doesn't meet policy. I'm now going to revert that back to normal.
Exactly.
So we started to see that happen in the server world, which has been taken up, you know, significantly by organisations. I think that's going to make a really big difference to.
We hope so too.
To the take up of the product. Well, that's great.
And then, like you said, it's just a constant evolution of when 10 customers all request the same thing, it's probably a pretty big deal, and we prioritize that up the queue. And because it's a SaaS-based application, there's nothing to patch, nothing to update. You log in one day and there's the new feature available too.
So one of the big questions we always get, and it's a really interesting one, is, okay, it's great, but what data are you actually taking from a client? Like, you know, from a security standpoint, in terms of, you know, with GDPR and, you know, in the UK and privacy regulations here in Australia and similar sort of, you know, things that exist in the US, what is it actually, because I think that's what people really want to understand, is what is it actually that you are capturing, and should they be concerned that, you know, they're going to have data taken out of their organisation and it's going to be stored in a cloud, and it could be, you know, what do you guys actually take out?
So it's mainly metadata, which is sort of people's names and email addresses, which is probably the most personal thing that we collect of people. But we don't look at subject lines of emails or into anyone's mailboxes. We don't even have access to do that. We don't go down to the file level on SharePoint. We only go down to the folder level, for example. So if there's a Alan Byrne firing plan document in there, people won't be able to see that. In the auditing piece, we go into a lot more detail because it's kind of important when you're auditing something to have all the information available, but that's why it's an opt-in service to go into that. So and then the data is always encrypted at rest and in transit. We go to very, very great lengths to make sure that customer data is protected and secure, and we document online exactly what is each attribute that's collected so that customers can decide for themselves if they're comfortable.
And is there a way that customers can ask for certain data not to be collected if they want to, sort of obfuscate some of that data?
So yes, it's not whether or not it's collected, but whether it's displayed, yes. So what we can do is we can anonymize user information, so the email addresses that I was talking about and the names, so that certain people can log in and only see anonymized reports, whereas other people may be able to log in and see all of the reports, for example, all of the data, the user data there. So this is incredibly important in Germany, in places, France, in Europe, where customer data and personal employee data is very, very secretive and important, and it's collected and handled in the right way, and this is where these features come in.
Right, and from a government perspective, for example, have you got many government agencies leveraging the tool set today at a global level, that really have those typically more stringent data management policies, etc.? Do you have a bunch of organisations that are doing that? Clearly you can't tell us who, but in principle...
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting with governments because they have this cloud-first mandate in a lot of countries now where they have to look for a cloud solution before an on-prem solution. But they also have these stringent privacy laws. Mm-hmm. So these two things often butt heads against each other. But we have a lot of customers in the US, the UK, even in Australia here, that are government customers using our tool, and we've been able to satisfy all of their security requirements.
So, Alan, we've spoken a lot about 365,
mm-hmm.
SharePoint, etc. What are you doing today, or your plans with Azure reporting? Because that as well is another big quagmire, in terms of what that looks like. What's happening with the tool set today and in the future with that?
So at the moment we're doing Azure AD reporting because it links in nicely with Office 365, the user accounts, that sort of thing, the grouping information. We haven't really looked too deeply into Azure reporting. If we did, it would probably be first around the billing piece
mm-hmm.
to do the chargebacks internally with the developers.
Mm-hmm.
So someone's developing in this side, they are being billed for these resources. The problem is Microsoft are really, really focusing on building in a lot of reporting into the Azure platform, and we don't want to take on Microsoft with this because we're bound to lose no matter how we go. But that is sort of the way we would enter into that space if we were to do so. That's
fantastic. And just lastly, Alan, because I know you're probably tired and want to get yourself some rest. It's very good of you to come and spend the time with us as you got off the plane. So in and as it relates to where the data is actually stored, that's a big question here in Australia, mm-hmm. is data sovereignty, for example, and where is it actually located? And if you are in Australia, should you be concerned if it's not located in Australia, etc.? What's your sort of view on that?
Well, I mean, obviously you've got to follow the regulations of where you are, but we store the data either in the US or Europe currently. They're the two options we give our customers, so they can have it in one of those two locations. Mm-hmm. We will open up more locations if the need is there, the demand mm-hmm. is there. But because it's just email addresses and names, not financial information, medical information, information about children. These are the usual protected categories. Because we don't access any of that, we tend to be able to offer it from these locations without too many problems.
Fantastic. All right, well, Alan, thanks very much. It's been great to have you joining us here on the couch.
Anytime.
And we'll let you get on with your catching up on some sleep and enjoying your time back here at home.
Yeah, thanks very much.
It's nice, by the way, and congratulations. It's always great to see a good Aussie company, a good couple of Aussies starting an organisation and growing that globally and making it the success story you have.
Well, I'm the Aussie there, and he's the English guy, but we've always argued over cricket and other things. But no, it's great that I can go across the world and have an impact over there, which may not have been possible in Sydney.
No, that's fantastic. Well done.
Thanks very much.
Thanks very much. So, Alan, Cogmotive, great kind of name, like, Cognitive. You're looking at your T-shirt there with all of the links, etc., and what you guys do. Where'd you come up with this name? It's like it's almost a wonderful name.
Well, we went through a lot of discussion, I should say, about what we're going to name the company. It was something we didn't want it to say 365 anything because we may want it to do other things with the company going forward. So we sat around for ages. Many beers were consumed. Names got thrown out. Domains got purchased. One of the names we came up with was Shu Reports, SHU, because Shu was the Egyptian god of wind and air or something. We went down some weird rabbit holes. And then we went online and found a website that had logos, domain names, and company names just listed out. You could buy them for $120. And we scrolled through this list page after page, and there was Cogmotive just staring us in the face. $120. Bad, we got it. And since then, we've had so many conversations with people saying, oh, it's great, the way the cogs all interact, the way that everything interacts. So the name, the brand got built around this $120 online purchase.
Sometimes the greatest ideas come out of the simplest things, right?
It was really embarrassing when Gartner said this, and I had to, in a Gartner briefing, explain, no, we just bought it online. We can't take credit for it. But
that's just fantastic.
That's where the story comes from, yeah.
That's brilliant.